are we? Here, Darren Dreger, Pierre LeBrun, and Frank Saravalli. Dregs, what's holding things up right now?
Well, a lot of things, Gino, but to simplify it, I mean, there's so many issues around roster size, taxi squads, how that's going to impact the American Hockey League as an example. Will waivers be required for players to clear to be placed on a taxi squad? How many players can be there? How do you activate that player from the taxi squad? And how many moves can you freely make as an NHL club? So there's a lot to work through.
And Dregs, part of the focus in these discussions over the last number of weeks has been these transactions between rosters and taxi squads as it relates to the salary cap. We know that's not changing at $81.5 million, but if your roster size is a maximum of 25, then how do you transition players to that taxi squad? We're told that at this point it would seem to be like a normal AHL transaction in the sense that no, the player is not leaving town, but his salary cap hit would come off the books unless it's one of those larger salaries which you're trying to bury. Everything except for $1.075 million would count against your cap. And so moving forward, there's all sorts of permutations and language that needs to be figured out, including accrued seasons, pro seasons, all things that relate to the expansion draft. So many things to sort through, guys.
And as we've learned, different cities and provinces are at different places with varying quarantine rules right now. How's that impacting players returning to their club cities, Pierre?
Yeah, certainly a different situation from one Canadian NHL team to another. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators lead the way in terms of how many players have already returned or been there all this time. I mean, the Leafs are at 36, which leads all 7 teams in terms of players who are already in town. The Ottawa Senators are up to 31 with more players arriving over the last 48 hours. That's huge for the Senators. We know that they will start camp 3 days before the other teams in Canada because they didn't play hockey and they returned to play last summer. At the other end of the spectrum, the Winnipeg Jets began the day at only 4 players in town. Of course, their facility had been closed until last Saturday. That number grew to 9 on Tuesday. 5 more players were slated to arrive for the Winnipeg Jets. The Habs are under 10. They only have 3 or 4 regulars and then some AHL guys. Their facility remains closed in Brossard. In Alberta, the Oilers are at 12. The Flames are 26. They have a shorter quarantine period in Alberta of 8 days. But in the meantime, some other Canadian teams I know are talking to their provincial governments about perhaps adjusting the quarantine period for some of their players if they only go to the practice facility. We'll see where that goes.
We know the NBA is allowing a limited number of fans to attend their games. Is the NHL looking to follow suit, Darren?
Well, that's a plan to some degree. We know that there will be buildings with some fans in. What we don't know, Gino, is what is the percentage of capacity here? Is it going to be as low as 30%? Could it be 50% or higher? It depends on the restrictions in each city, in each state. And the problem with it is, you know, what the expectation was in certain cities even a week ago, well, that's changed because of the issues and the scenarios that those cities have had to address since. So it's very much a moving target.
And Dregs, that would only be fans if the NHL can indeed open in all 31 arenas. That remains in doubt. Take the San Jose Sharks, for instance. I'm told they're planning to open training camp in Scottsdale, Arizona at the practice facility of the Arizona Coyotes. And moving forward, I'm told that NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman has sought the counsel of Dr. Tony Fauci from the National Institutes of Health over the course of this pandemic. And one of the recommendations that Dr. Fauci had made to Gary Bettman over the last number of weeks was, if you want to pull this off and start the NHL season safely, the best way to do that would be in hubs. That's not the preference of both clubs and players, but I'm told that hubs very much remain a plan B and are on the table. So lots still in the air with less than a month until that start date target.
And we know the vaccines are being rolled out across North America even as we speak, with millions of more doses still on the way. Who knows? Come June, we could see more and more fans safely make their way into the arenas